Next item we have is from 49's Technology, Laura Wolfgram, and she made the presentation to the Joint Finance and Transportation Committee meeting yesterday. And I might mention at this time the trustees have the minutes from that meeting, which got prepared quickly, and you might, just kind of glance at them as she's making her presentation, and then we'll vote on those at the end of the meeting. So, Laura, all right?
Great. Thank you for having me. Thank you for many of your patience in hearing some of the similar materials. So as far as the EMBARK Fare study, we started last January with the primary objective of reviewing EMBARK's fare policies, understanding how they compare to peers, and identifying opportunities to improve EMBARK's fare structure and fare policies and fare collection technologies. So as part of the study, we looked at peer agencies. We looked at the 11 peer agencies that EMBARK uses, as well as a greater list of peers to kind of really understand some of the components that some of your peers may have not dealt with yet, such as implementing Streetcar or new fare technologies. As part of the study, we developed recommendations based on this review. We also helped develop a fare change policy, a fare schedule, and a fare collection strategy, and these are all to help provide guidance to the board as well as staff as they embark on fare changes and new fare collection technologies in the future. This is a list of the recommendations that have been developed. We'll be focusing on the ones on the left. What is important to remember is that when pursuing a new fare or fare change, it's important to consider kind of the impacts on your riders and their ability to pay. It's also important to kind of think about your other priorities, such as maybe ridership growth or Farebox recovery. An enacted fare policy will help in kind of understanding some of these components and navigating these issues. One of the things that will be important to note is that the recommendations are here for receipt by the board, and that staff will be coming back and asking which recommendations they want to go out for public meetings in the February timeframe. And as part of that, there will also be a Title VI analysis to understand any impacts on low-income and minority populations. And then there are some recommendations that are not shown here because staff have already started implementing one, which is your next agenda item, which is related to the Zone 3 paratransit zone. That's kind of an addition or a separation between Zone 1 or Zone 2 into two separate zones. And the other is the mobile ticketing procurement that you guys issued last month. One of the primary objectives of the fare study was to develop a fare change policy to provide guidance to EMBARK staff when considering, evaluating, and implementing fare changes. The Board of Trustees will retain the ability to approve any of the fare changes. It's just kind of a document to help provide guidance on the steps that are involved. And the staff will be going out to the public with providing the policy online for public comment, and we'll also be receiving public comment cards. The plan is to bring this fare change policy back to the board for adoption at the February board meeting. One of the key components of the fare change policy is the Farebox recovery ratio, which is defined as fare revenue divided by the total operating costs. These Farebox recovery are targets that are set over a 5-year period. They're kind of designed to help increase the proportion of operating costs that are covered by fares over the next 5 years. And the proposed Farebox recovery targets that are shown here are a 10% increase over where you were in 2017. The next recommendation is related to Streetcar. With the introduction of Streetcar, it's recommended to plan for launch and to implement and establish a fare in advance. In general, most peers charge a fare. It's very rare to not have a fare established. And part of why you charge a fare is to really create a sense of ownership of the service. Compared to bus fares, the streetcar fares are generally lower. And this is in part to reflect the different trip making patterns. So many of these trips can be completed by walking. Other products that peers often offer are day, multi-day, and monthly passes, as well as either a single ride or a kind of a short period pass, like a 2-hour or 3-hour pass. The recommendation is, based on our review, we recommend accepting your 1-day, 7-day, and 30-day passes that are available on bus. Many of the riders that we spoke to last spring were very interested in streetcar, but they weren't willing to necessarily pay a second time to ride streetcar. So these passes are currently accepted on all bus services. In the future, kind of streetcar will be seen as an extension of your fixed route services. In addition to kind of accepting your bus passes, the proposal is to charge a $1 single trip fare that would be valid for 1 hour, which would enable your riders to complete a one-way trip. When we conducted focus groups at the end of October, participants were interested in an affordable fare, and they were also interested in paying for each trip rather than paying for a 2-hour pass where they may or may not be able to complete their round trip within that time period. The next component is a kind of streetcar-only day pass. This would be targeted mostly towards special events, as well as kind of people that are driving and parking downtown. These would be issued from the ticket vending machines. They would also be issued on mobile ticketing, and the plan is to have mobile ticketing live well in advance of streetcar. The other component would be a calendar pass, or calendar monthly pass, which would be available on mobile ticketing. As part of updating your streetcar fare, the recommendation, or establishing a streetcar fare, the recommendation is to update your downtown discovery fare to kind of be in line with the single ride fare for streetcar. So the recommendation is to increase the price of the single trip fare that's currently 50 cents and increase it to $1 to match streetcar pricing in the future, and then also try to migrate your riders from your downtown discovery day pass to the kind of unlimited universal pass that will be valid both on bus and streetcar. The next component is really based off of our peer review and kind of looking at how you guys were priced compared to your peers. EMBARK single ride fares were generally in line with your peers, but pass prices were slightly underpriced, and this is in part due to the pass multiples that are used. So pass multiples provide a relationship between the single ride fare and the pass prices. So if you take the pass price and you divide it by the single ride fare, that gives you kind of your pass multiple. So one of the things that has impacted your pass multiples has been the fare increase that occurred in 2014 when you increased your single ride fare but kept your pass prices at the same level. And so as a result, you'll see kind of the one-day pass multiple went from 2.7 down to 2.3, which kind of brings it towards the lower end of your peers. And so shown here is kind of what the pass multiples will be for the proposed pricing that are shown on the next slide. In some cases, they're on the lower end. Some cases, they're on the higher end. This kind of variation is in part due to kind of trying to price your passes at a reasonable amount, such as at $1 or 50-cent increments, to really kind of try to minimize the amount of change that's being put into the fare box for the different passes. The recommendation is to increase your pass prices over the next 5 years. The recommendation is about a 12 to 25% increase on the day passes, and again, the variation is due to kind of the rounding to the nearest dollar of the adult fares. Increasing the pass prices will help EMBARK meet its 5-year Farebox recovery targets adopted as part of that fare change policy. The proposed fare changes kind of using kind of an elasticity-based model that kind of understands price sensitivities of riders results in about a 10% increase in revenue and a 5% increase or decrease in ridership due to them responding to the increase in price. The next recommendation is related to the senior age threshold. FTA requires grantees to provide a half fare for seniors, and seniors are defined by FTA as 65 or older. However, FTA allows agencies to offer, extend the discount to younger persons. Many of EMBARK's peers have set their age threshold at 65. Only 3 of the 11 have a lower age threshold. One of the things that increasing your age threshold from 60 to 65 would help in doing is providing kind of a greater financial sustainability for EMBARK as the population ages and people kind of stay in the workforce longer. The final recommendation that we'll be talking about in this presentation, and we can talk about any of the other recommendations, is the fare schedule. So this is something that would be likely coming when the board is asked to adopt any of the fare changes for 2019. This kind of really provides a central location that documents all of your fare policies, your pricing, your structure, what fare payment methods you have, how riders are actually paying their fares. So it's really a document both for staff. I've also seen these published and available for riders so that they can kind of understand what the policies are for payment of fares. So that's a kind of a quick overview of the recommendations listed on the left. We've kind of included in your board packet the fare change policy draft, as well as the fare schedule draft, and a fare collection strategy draft that kind of all cover a lot of these topics that are covered up here. So thank you for receiving the recommendations, and I guess if there's any feedback or input that the board wants to provide now, I'll open it to you.
You might, at our committee meeting yesterday, gave a brief implementation of the time schedule or the time frame for all of this. You might just briefly.
Yeah, so the plan is to take the fare change policy, publish it online, print copies of it, have them at the transit center so that people can kind of look at the policy, provide input on it, either electronically or through comment cards. So the plan is to kind of have that out for 30 days so that then when it comes to your February board meeting, staff will be asking you to adopt the fare change policy. At that meeting, I believe the plan is also to kind of get a list of recommendations that you guys want to move forward with for 2019. So for example, the streetcar fare would be one of those components so that the public outreach can then occur in February with a formal public hearing in front of the board at the March meeting and then adoption by the board at the April meeting, I believe. Did I catch everything, Jason? Or okay. Great.
And one other question, we spent quite a bit of time yesterday on the technology and and I didn't ever recall hearing, is the technology there to implement all your recommendations on buying passes and fares, or are we still kind of waiting on technology to catch up?
So there are components where, for example, there are things that are being explored and considered as part of the mobile ticketing procurement. So it'll be kind of a back and forth conversation with the mobile ticketing vendor. The expectation is that technology, if it's not there immediately, for example, for parking / streetcar type fare products, it will be soon. That's kind of also the expectation with fare capping. There's definitely been interest by the mobile ticketing vendors to roll something like that out. But all of the recommendations that are on the left are all implementable right now.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just to make a comment, and I know we'll get to this on our items for individual consideration, item 6B in particular. I think for anybody hearing this information for the first time, it's just important to note the purpose of this meeting today is to simply receive these recommendations. So if anyone happened to glance at the slide indicating fare price or pass price increases or changes to the senior age, there's nothing that the board is being asked to take action on today. We're just simply receiving those recommendations, and it'll be a policy decision and discretion of the trustees which of those recommendations and when they're implemented. So again, I just felt like we needed to make that clarification. And then two, with regards to the fare policy that will be made available for public comment, the fare policy itself does not establish the price of fares. It's just our process that we will use moving forward in evaluating and determining what our fares should be. So again, for anyone that's just hearing this information for the first time and they go out to look at that fare policy and think, well, where's the fare prices? Well, the fare policy will not have the fare schedule included in it. So again, just trying to make a point of clarification there that policy is really more about staff's obligation to provide information to trustees so the trustees can set goals and establish an appropriate fare.
Any other questions, Laura?
No, I'd just like to comment also that I think that I was confused as to why we needed a fare policy, but after we reviewed it and saw the comprehensive nature of it, it is really something that will not only guide the trustees and the staff in developing fair policies, but be able to do it on a comprehensive and the review of the peers. And we received a lot of information yesterday, and it was very helpful to us, I think, in seeing the scope of what this entailed.
And we also ask at the meeting with the fair policy that all the trustees have their copy, and when it comes time to approve it, but in the meantime, would ask all the trustees to really go over it and put down any questions they have so that we are in a position to approve it when the time comes. So, all right, thank you.
Great. Thank you, guys.